The morning on the farm had always been my sanctuary. Sunlight filtered through the barn windows, dust motes dancing lazily in the air, and the soft snort of our horse, Jasper, grounded me in a way nothing else could. I had always loved the rhythm of this life, simple, calm, and full of quiet moments where words weren't necessary. But that day, calm turned fragile the moment Ethan walked in with that look in his eyes. There was a spark, an uncharacteristic excitement he carried like a secret too heavy to contain. My first thought was curiosity, then amusement. Ethan had always been the dreamer between us, the one who pushed boundaries and imagined possibilities I hadn't considered. Sometimes his ideas were whimsical, almost silly, but they always had that unspoken charm. Today, though, there was something different. Something in the way his grin lingered and his hands fidgeted suggested he had been planning this for longer than I suspected. "Olivia, I've got this brilliant idea," he said, his voice calm yet tinged with anticipation. He gestured toward Jasper, who stood quietly nearby, his ears flicking toward us, sensing the tension I hadn't even acknowledged yet. "It'll be amazing. You'll see." I smiled, a reflexive gesture, because I trusted him. I always had. But the pit in my stomach wasn't about Jasper or the barn, it was about the energy in the room, subtle but undeniable. Ethan's words painted a picture of innocence. "Just you and Jasper, showing our bond on camera. People will love it." But there was a hesitation, almost imperceptible, that made me pause. It wasn't in his words, but in the way he watched me, waiting, expectant. As he adjusted the camera and fiddled with the tripod, the quiet shuffle of Jasper's hooves punctuated the rising tension. I ran a hand over the horse's sleek neck, trying to steady both him and myself. I could feel the weight of my doubt pressing against me, like a shadow lurking at the edges, of something I had wanted to be simple. The familiar comfort of our routine, the brushing, the soft murmurs, the shared laughter, was replaced by a questioning silence. "What exactly do you want me to do?" I asked finally, keeping my voice low but firm. I needed clarity, a lifeline, anything to pull me from this uneasy anticipation. Ethan looked up from the camera, offering a reassuring smile. "Nothing crazy. Just be yourself. You and Jasper. Let the bond show." His words should have comforted me, but they didn't. The pause before he spoke, the faint tightening of his jaw, and the intensity in his eyes made my trust wobble. Something about the calmness was too precise, too rehearsed, and as I glanced at Jasper, his ears flicking nervously, I realized the tension wasn't mine alone. Animals always sense what we try to hide. I took a hesitant step forward, guided more by habit than certainty. The barn, usually a refuge, now felt like a stage, its warm beams of sunlight turning into spotlights that illuminated my uncertainty. Ethan's hands moved with deliberate precision, adjusting angles and lighting, speaking softly as if each word were part of a performance I hadn't auditioned for. "Come stand here, like we practiced," he instructed. Practiced? My stomach nodded. We hadn't rehearsed anything this specific, yet I moved almost automatically, while Jasper shifted uneasily beside me. I whispered soothing words to him, grounding us both in what was real, even as doubt crawled over my skin. The tension coiled tighter when I noticed the little red light blinking on the camera, recording. My heart thumped as I realized this wasn't just a private video. Ethan had set something into motion I hadn't agreed to, and the implications surged through me like cold water. I started, but he interrupted gently. "Trust me, Olivia. It'll feel natural. Trust." The word felt heavier than ever. It wasn't just a suggestion. It was a demand in disguise, a test masked as encouragement. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile, but the tightness in my chest betrayed me. Jasper nuzzled my shoulder, his instinctive comfort reminding me that some bonds were unbreakable. Some trust was sacred. Ethan's voice softened again, coaxing, persuasive. "It'll be perfect. Just you, me, and Jasper. That's all anyone will see." But I sensed layers beneath the surface pressure he hadn't admitted, a need for control dressed in casual words. The barn's quiet seemed to hum with anticipation, the walls holding their breath with me. I glanced at the camera once more, imagining strangers watching our every movement. The thought made my skin prickle. Was this still about sharing a special moment? Or had it become a performance he needed to prove something, somewhere I wasn't allowed to see? The seconds stretched, the air thickened, and then, just as Ethan moved to adjust the lens again, my hand brushed Jasper's mane, grounding me. I met Ethan's eyes, searching for the reassurance I needed. What I saw instead was focus unflinching, intense, almost calculating, and in that moment, I realized that the day I had imagined peaceful, serene, full of quiet joy, was already slipping away. Something unseen was beginning, and I knew, deep down, that once it started, there would be no stepping back. The barn was still, but the tension between us was palpable, and as the camera's red light blinked steadily, I knew that whatever Ethan had planned was about to push every limit I thought I had. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself, but the weight in my chest wouldn't ease. Jasper shifted again, his hooves scraping softly against the barn floor, a subtle reminder that he too felt the tension hanging in the air. I ran my hand along his neck, trying to draw strength from the quiet warmth of his presence. He was calm, steady, and reliable, the one constant I could trust, even when everything else felt uncertain. Ethan stepped closer, adjusting the camera once more. "You're doing fine, Olivia," he said softly, but his words, though meant to soothe, only tightened the coil of unease in my stomach. There was a precision in the way he moved, a meticulousness that suggested this was bigger than just capturing a sweet moment. I wondered again, was it about us? Or something else entirely? "Just smile a little. Relax," he coaxed, his voice low and gentle, yet there was an edge I couldn't ignore. I forced a smile, careful not to let my nerves show too clearly. My hand stayed on Jasper's neck, grounding me in the one thing that wasn't performing, the one soul that hadn't been scripted. I glanced at the barn around us, the hay stacked neatly, the tools hanging in their usual places, the warm sunlight painting golden streaks across the floor, and yet it all felt different. Every familiar detail seemed magnified, every shadow and sound conspiring to heighten my awareness. Even the air felt charged, like a storm was brewing just beyond the walls. "What's the goal here, Ethan?" I asked quietly, trying to anchor the conversation in reality. My voice barely carried above the soft shuffle of Jasper's hooves. He looked up, meeting my gaze, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw hesitation there, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Olivia, just trust me. This will be great. People will see the bond you and Jasper. That's all that matters. All that matters." The words should have comforted me, but instead they hit like a hammer against glass. Was it really about the bond? Or about something unseen? Something he hadn't admitted? I wanted to believe him, to surrender my doubts and let the moment flow naturally. But a nagging unease crawled under my skin, refusing to be ignored. Jasper nuzzled my hand gently, sensing the conflict I tried so hard to hide. Animals are perceptive. He always had been, reading my moods like open pages. I whispered softly, "It's okay, boy. Just stay calm." His presence was grounding, a reminder that some connections weren't staged, weren't recorded, weren't under scrutiny, they simply existed. Ethan adjusted the lens again, speaking in a low murmur. "This angle, it's perfect. Just a little closer to him." He gestured toward Jasper, and I felt the familiar tension in my stomach twist sharper. Closer to him? Closer to what? I tried to read his expression, searching for the familiar warmth that usually accompanied his ideas, but it was buried under something I couldn't name, an intensity that unsettled me. "Why now?" I asked softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why are we doing this today?" Ethan paused, fingers hovering over the camera. "Because it's time," he said finally, eyes locking onto mine with that spark of conviction I had always admired, now tinged with something more urgent. I could see the way he was thinking ahead, planning, calculating something that wasn't meant for me to see yet. The red light on the camera blinked steadily, recording each heartbeat, each thought I tried to suppress. The quiet hum of the equipment became almost deafening in the intensity of the barn. I realized then that this wasn't just about filming a simple moment. It was about control, about how far he could push before I resisted. I swallowed hard, the words catching in my throat. "Ethan, I need to know everything. I can't not know what this is about." He shook his head gently, almost imperceptibly. "You'll see. Trust me, Olivia." But the words felt like a trap, a gentle cage around my instinctive resistance. I wanted to fight it, to step back and regain some measure of autonomy. But something held me there, habit, love, the hope that maybe this would all turn out harmless. Jasper shifted again, tail flicking nervously, and I realized I wasn't the only one feeling the tension. The horse had always been a mirror of our emotions, and now he reflected the unease I couldn't ignore. I ran a hand along his flank, whispering comfort, grounding myself in the only reality that felt untouchable. Ethan moved closer, adjusting the tripod with deliberate precision. "Almost there," he said softly, as if each word were meant to reassure me, but the careful tone only tightened the suspense. "Almost there. Almost where?" I wanted to ask, but the words wouldn't come. My mind raced with questions I couldn't voice. I caught my reflection in the barn window, an image of someone on edge, trying to maintain calm while uncertainty crept in like a shadow. The sunlight glinted off the camera lens, a small red dot that blinked like it was watching, recording, measuring my hesitation. Each second stretched longer, each breath heavier, as I realized the day I had thought would be peaceful was now a precipice. And then, in the quiet, I noticed something. Ethan's movements were too practiced, his voice too smooth. This wasn't just spontaneity, it was preparation. And the preparation was for something beyond a simple video. A sense of anticipation coiled in my chest, and I knew, deep down, that the next moments would define a line I wasn't sure I wanted to cross. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my racing heart. Jasper leaned into my touch, a reassuring weight against my side, and I whispered to him, "Stay with me, boy. Stay with me." The world narrowed to the barn, the horse, and Ethan's unwavering gaze, and just as I felt the first tremors of resolve settle within me, a soft click echoed from behind the camera. My blood ran cold. I knew that sound. It wasn't just recording, it was live. The red light was no longer just a recording signal. It was broadcasting, watching everything, capturing every second of doubt, every heartbeat, and Ethan didn't even notice. My stomach knotted as the reality settled and Ethan had turned on the live stream. Without a single word to me, the little red light blinking on the camera no longer felt like a neutral signal. It was a warning, a pulse of exposure that made my heart race. Strangers were watching every move I made, every subtle flicker of hesitation. My fingers tightened on Jasper's mane as I tried to ground both him and myself. "Olivia, you're doing great," Ethan said, still adjusting the camera, completely absorbed in his own vision. His words should have reassured me, but they didn't. The calmness in his tone felt like a wall, one that I wasn't allowed to climb over. The pressure wasn't subtle anymore, it pressed against me from all sides, like the air itself had grown heavier. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "Ethan, you went live, without telling me. Why?" He glanced up, a flicker of something almost apologetic crossing his face before it disappeared. "It's fine, Olivia. Trust me. People respond more when it's authentic. Not staged. Not staged." The words hit harder than any slap could. This wasn't a project. This wasn't a rehearsal. This was my life, exposed to hundreds, maybe thousands, of eyes I hadn't agreed to. My chest tightened, my throat burned, and Jasper nudged my hand gently, sensing the surge of tension I was trying to hide. Animals are honest. They know the truth of a moment before we do. "Authenticity doesn't mean I'm a prop," I whispered, though my words were sharp enough to slice through the quiet. Ethan didn't answer, just continued adjusting the camera as if my voice had been background noise. The barn, our safe haven, now felt like a stage designed to measure how far I could be pushed. I looked at Jasper, his ears flicking nervously, tail swishing. "Stay calm, boy. We'll get through this," I murmured, trying to draw strength from his presence. The horse was more than an animal. He was family, a grounding force that reminded me of the world beyond the blinking light and unseen viewers. Ethan's eyes met mine again, unwavering, intense. "Just a few more moments," he said softly, coaxing, persuasive, almost hypnotic. "We're almost there. You'll see. Almost there." My chest tightened further. Almost where? The uncertainty gnawed at me, clawing away the trust I had taken years to build. I wanted to believe in him like I always had. I wanted to let go of my fear and surrender to the moment, but the line had shifted without warning, and now I wasn't sure I wanted to cross it. The soft hum of the camera filled the silence between words, and my mind raced. Comments were streaming in already. I could feel the pulse of the unseen audience, imagining their confusion, their curiosity, their judgment, and I hadn't agreed to it. Not this way. Not like this. "Olivia," Ethan's voice broke through again, calm, low, controlled. "Look at Jasper. Show him your smile. That's all anyone needs." I forced it, a smile that felt brittle and hollow. My hands remained on Jasper's neck, squeezing gently to draw reassurance from him. My eyes flicked to the camera again. The little red light blinked steadily, a silent heartbeat of the crowd observing us. And I realized then that I wasn't alone in feeling the tension. Jasper, loyal and perceptive, mirrored it perfectly. What happens if I don't go along with this? I thought aloud, the question heavy in the barn's stillness. But the words barely left my lips before I swallowed them. There was no time for hesitation. The moment had already escalated beyond my control. Ethan's movements were precise, each adjustment to the camera calculated. He wasn't just capturing a moment, he was orchestrating one. I felt a cold twist in my chest, a warning I couldn't ignore. This wasn't just about the video anymore, it was about control. How far could he push me? How much would I allow before I finally stepped back? Jasper snorted softly, shifting his weight, and I mirrored his tension, moving with him. The connection I shared with him had never felt more crucial, more necessary. He was my anchor, the one being I could trust to remain honest even as everything else became manipulated and performative. Olivia, just a little closer. Ethan's voice floated toward me, soft but firm. My legs moved almost automatically, stepping in the direction he indicated, but my mind screamed caution. I wasn't just following instructions, I was testing boundaries, balancing trust against exposure, love against fear. The comments continued to appear, though I couldn't read them clearly. Flashes of concern, confusion, amusement, they didn't matter individually. What mattered was the pressure, the sense that the world was watching, evaluating, recording my every hesitation. I felt my chest tighten, a mix of panic and resolve coiling inside me. I placed a hand gently on Jasper's neck, grounding myself. His warmth, steady breathing, and calm gaze reminded me of what truly mattered. Not the camera, not Ethan's need to prove something, not the eyes watching from afar. What mattered was the bond we shared, honest and unmanipulated, the quiet trust that had always existed between us. I swallowed, taking a deep breath as the red light blinked steadily. My heart pounded in my ears. Something inside me shifted resolve, igniting where doubt had threatened to take over. I wasn't just a participant anymore. I was aware, alert, prepared to reclaim the boundaries that had been silently crossed. And then I saw it. Ethan had moved closer to the tripod again, his eyes scanning mine as if measuring my compliance, anticipating my hesitation. A shadow of something unreadable passed across his expression, calculation, determination, maybe even doubt, but I couldn't tell which. The uncertainty twisted in my chest, sharper than ever. Something was about to happen. Something I hadn't agreed to, something I hadn't anticipated. And I realized, with a sinking feeling, that the line had already shifted. The next move would define everything: trust, control, and how far I was willing to go before drawing it back. Before I could act, my fingers brushing Jasper's mane for reassurance, I heard the soft, almost imperceptible click from behind the camera. My stomach dropped. The live stream wasn't just recording anymore, it was broadcasting. The moment the soft click echoed from the camera, my heart sank. The realization hit me like icy water. Ethan had gone live without my consent. The red light wasn't just a record signal anymore. It was a pulse, a heartbeat of exposure that I hadn't agreed to. Strangers were watching every subtle tremor in my hands, every hesitation, and every silent question flickering in my eyes. "Ethan, what are you doing?" My voice was firmer now, sharp with disbelief. I could feel Jasper shift beside me, his hooves scraping lightly against the barn floor, a subtle echo of the tension tightening around my chest. His ears flicked back, tail twitching, as if he too sensed the danger that I could barely name. Ethan glanced up from the camera, a faint flicker of guilt crossing his features before vanishing entirely. "It's fine, Olivia. Trust me. People respond better when it's authentic, not staged," he said, his tone smooth, almost rehearsed. Authentic, not staged. The words reverberated in my mind like a cruel echo. This wasn't a performance I had agreed to. This was my life, my trust, my privacy being broadcast to strangers I had never met. My chest tightened, and a rush of heat rose to my cheeks, not from anger alone, but from the shock and disbelief that my personal boundaries had been violated in such a public way. Jasper nudged my hand gently, grounding me. I whispered softly, "Stay calm, boy. Just stay calm." His eyes were steady, patient, loyal, the only presence that hadn't turned into a calculated performance. For a moment, the barn felt both suffocating and protective, the walls witnessing my silent battle between fear and control. "You," I started again, voice trembling. "You can't just go live without telling me." Ethan waved his hands, as if the act were trivial. "It's only a few minutes. You've done harder things." "It's nothing," he said casually, his words brushing over my rising panic. But it wasn't nothing. It was trust being shattered, the line between us blurred in front of unseen eyes. I stepped back, gripping Jasper's mane tighter. The soft snort he gave me felt like a warning I couldn't ignore. Animals sense these things: fear, doubt, betrayal. And now he mirrored the unease I felt crawling under my skin. The calm haven of our barn had shifted into a stage of tension, exposure, and unspoken conflict. Messages started coming in on my phone, buzzing insistently in my pocket. Friends, family, acquaintances all asking if I was okay, if this was part of the plan. The screen flashed incessantly, a reminder that the audience wasn't just watching, they were reacting, forming judgments, and I hadn't been part of the decision. My hands trembled, a cold knot of panic tightening around my chest. "Olivia, it's just a moment. Let it play out," Ethan murmured again, soft, persuasive. But the urgency beneath his calm voice was unmistakable. My skin prickled, recognizing the subtle coercion. This wasn't encouragement, it was pressure, a test to see how far I would comply before pushing back. I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself. Jasper leaned into my side, a reassuring weight in the storm of my thoughts. His calm presence reminded me of the one constant I could rely on. Not cameras, not strangers, not Ethan's obsessive pursuit of perfection or validation. Just the bond we shared, untainted by performance or exposure. I shook my head, trying to steady my rising panic. "No, Ethan. I'm not continuing like this. You crossed a line. This is not just about the video." My voice, though trembling, carried a firmness that surprised even me. The barn seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his reaction. Ethan paused, staring at me as if the words had pierced a veil he hadn't expected. For a moment, I thought he might back down. But then, the casual shrug returned, as though my resistance were a minor obstacle rather than a boundary he had violated. "I thought you'd go along with it. People love authenticity. You were emotional. It was real," he said, almost dismissively. "Real!" I snapped, my voice rising. "This isn't just real, it's my life, my trust. And you didn't even ask me." He opened his mouth, hesitated, then stayed silent. That pause told me more than any words could. Maybe he understood the gravity of what he'd done. Maybe he didn't. But I didn't wait to find out. I walked past him, moving toward Jasper, who had been pacing nervously. My hand rested on his neck, grounding, myself in the one soul untouched by manipulation. As I unclipped Jasper's halter to let him roam freely in the pasture, my eye caught something tucked into his saddlebag, a small, folded envelope I hadn't placed there. My fingers trembled as I opened it, unfolding the note inside. The handwriting was unmistakably Ethan's. "I know you saw the messages. I couldn't let it go public. This video had to distract them." My hands shook. Messages? Distract them? The words were brief, but their weight pressed down on me like stones. There was something bigger here, something hidden. And now, for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about the video or the live stream. There was a secret lurking beneath the surface, one that Ethan had planned carefully. I turned slowly, facing him. His expression was a mix of confusion, guilt, and something I couldn't name. "What does this mean?" I whispered, feeling the weight of truth pressing down on me. Ethan's shoulders slumped, his eyes dropping briefly before meeting mine again. "It's not what you think. I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to find out this way," he said, voice low, almost fragile. "There's something I've been keeping from you. Something that could ruin everything." The words hit harder than the live stream, the pressure, or the betrayal. A chill ran down my spine. He had been hiding something all along. And now, the next chapter of this story, the one that would redefine everything, was just beginning. I stood there, the envelope trembling in my hands, my heart pounding, staring at Ethan. Secrets, lies, and control had collided in a single moment, and I knew the truth waiting inside could change everything. The envelope trembled in my hands as I slowly unfolded the note again. My mind raced, heart hammering in my chest. What messages had he been trying to hide? Why involve me, Jasper, and this live stream in something so secretive? Each question twisted, tighter in my mind, refusing to let me find peace. Ethan stepped closer, his gaze searching mine, pleading silently. Olivia, I thought if I kept you focused on the video with Jasper, you wouldn't notice. I didn't want to hurt you. I didn't ask to be distracted. You went live without telling me, and now you're telling me there's more I don't know? My voice shook, anger and fear coiling together. How am I supposed to trust you after this? He sighed deeply, a heaviness in his expression that I hadn't seen before. I messed up. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could control everything, but I was wrong. I wanted to protect you, to protect us. I never meant for it to get this far. I swallowed hard, the tension in my body refusing to let go. Jasper nudged my side, sensing my uncertainty. I pressed my hand to his mane, grounding myself in the one being who remained honest and unmanipulated. Animals never lie, never scheme, they simply are. And, right now, he was my anchor. Ethan dropped his head, voice low. I know I broke your trust, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I need you to know I never wanted to hurt you. Not really. The truth hung in the air, heavy and complicated. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to reach out and bridge the widening gap between us, but the sting of betrayal was sharp. It wasn't just about the live stream. It was about control, secrets, and boundaries crossed. Love alone wasn't enough to erase that. I glanced at Jasper, his calm eyes meeting mine, and I felt a wave of clarity. My trust, once shaken, had to be rebuilt not just with Ethan, but within myself. I needed to stand firm, to reclaim the boundaries that had been crossed. I need time, Ethan, I said finally, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. Time away from the cameras, away from this pressure. I need to figure out what we are, what we mean to each other without the audience. Watching. He nodded, the weight of regret clear on his face. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll wait. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. The barn, once tense and suffocating, seemed to exhale with us. Jasper shifted, stretching his legs as if to release some of the tension that had built in the air. I ran my hand along his neck, grounding myself further in his steady presence. In the days that followed, Ethan and I gave each other space. The cameras were gone. The barn was ours again. Jasper was free to roam the pasture, and we slowly began to heal the fractures between us. Conversations were raw, honest, and sometimes uncomfortable, but each one helped rebuild a foundation of trust that had been shattered. I realized that love isn't just about sharing moments of joy. It's about respecting boundaries, communicating openly, and protecting each other even from our own mistakes. Ethan learned that lesson too. He learned that ambition and creativity are meaningless if they come at the cost of trust, if they ignore the people we love. Jasper remained our silent witness through it all, his calm presence a reminder that connection is more than what's seen on camera. He didn't care about followers, likes, or authenticity. He cared about us, the bond we shared, and the quiet moments we allowed ourselves to live. The note Ethan had left in the saddlebag remained a reminder of the day trust was tested. Its weight was heavy, but it also marked the beginning of a deeper understanding. We didn't need an audience to validate our love or our bond. We only needed each other, and that was more than enough. In the end, the live stream never went public. The secret messages, the tension, the pressure, all of it remained private, a lesson carved into our hearts. And as I watched Ethan and Jasper together in the late afternoon sun, I understood one simple truth. Sometimes the most important stories aren't shared with the world, they're lived, quietly, and held close. I took a deep breath, feeling the peace settle slowly in my chest. We had crossed a storm, navigated tension and secrecy, and emerged with clarity. Love, trust, and connection weren't about performance. They were about presence, honesty, and shared understanding. Ethan looked at me, eyes soft and apologetic, and I smiled faintly, not because everything was perfect, but because we had the chance to rebuild, to start again, and to choose our bond over any performance or audience. Jasper nudged my side gently, and I laughed softly, the sound unburdened and light. The horse, the barn, and the quiet connection we shared were more precious than any fleeting moment of viral fame. And in that calm, I realized the truth I had been missing. Life's most meaningful moments aren't captured on camera. They're felt in the heartbeat of trust, the warmth of love, and the quiet assurance that someone, maybe two, maybe three, like Jasper truly has your back. No camera, no audience, just us, together. choosing love and trust above all else. Sometimes, the stories that matter most aren't meant for the world, they're meant for the heart. Protect them, treasure them, and never let the pressure of performance steal what's real.